Now, let's start talking about issues, and I have few. And these are the things, and this is what I've been asked to produce in general. To have a list of things you need to pay attention to make good contracts and make sure you don't get bamboozled and duped and flabbergasted. Let's start with contractual issues. And again, there are good publishers, there are bad publishers, there are good partners, there are bad partners, bad actors, good actors, but you need to understand the mechanics. You need to understand why these things happen, what are the legacy of some of the things existing into the industry, what are the things that you need to pay attention to, how in general things moving in the industry currently and used to move before, and how most probably they will move in some future, though I want to believe that a lot of those things will change. And you need to come to the one simple conclusion: if you have a good game, and you need to believe that you have a good game wholeheartedly. If you are trying to put it to the market, you need to love your game. This is mandatory. You want to discuss any of the questions and any of the things which you are not feel comfortable with. Just don't be shy, or don't buy this societal bullshit where we all been told for many years that it's just not comfortable to ask questions that may make other people feel uncomfortable, because a lot of people just lose fortunes because of this, and you shouldn't do that. You should always be on point. You should understand that publishers are businesses made to build businesses. It's a part of their job to a little bit woo you and to create good relationship with you. It's a part of their job to provide you with a pitch so you would decide to put their game in their portfolio, because this is how they increase their capitalization, this is how they get the bonuses, and this is how founders get rich potentially. And this is the primary motivation, not because you're a great person, not because they played games before. It's you and gamers. Like, publishers are business structures, like, to the core. And they're often big companies. And big companies, corporate companies, they operate it by the bottom line. Ideology, 100%, everything else is mandatory. On the contractual issues, you read the contract and mark everything that goes to responsibilities of the publishing party and for the honesty developers party. And ask yourself and ask a counterparty you're talking to how those elements are enforceable, and what is your level of control in decisions made not on the global side of the issues but on the particular sides as well. And I'm talking about if publisher makes a commitment for $500,000 into the marketing campaign, let's say. You want to look at this campaign, you want to understand every detail of that, you want to see numbers associated with the conversion of every outlet being into this campaign, and understand the decision why exactly those outlets are and not others. And you want to ask as well how much this is alterable, because it is alterable. Trust me, and it will be altered down the way, and you want to be a part of the decision of this altering. And because what you will see in every contract is everything where you drop the ball is enforceable through the process of development. Every contract goes with a very precise definition of stages of what have to be delivered at every stage, and quality as well, with the vertical slice being the benchmark. And if you don't manage to deliver every of those positions at the specific dates specified in the contract, publisher has all the rights not to pay you on the next stage and freeze the development. And in most of the cases, a stage would have to be resubmitted under the specified terms. Typically it's 2 to 4 weeks, depending from the size of the project and the way it rolls. So there would be consequences if you are not able to supply the stage in 3-4 times. That there is a very high chance that the project would be terminated. And if you have put the IP, and you will be told that you put an IP into the ownership of the publisher, is a form of the collateral of the financial risks associated with you not being able to deliver on the game. Then you will find yourself in a very weird situation where, let's say for some reasons, your game being terminated at the beta, and publisher gets all the stuff, get an IP, and tries to finish it without a developer. It happens. It happened before. Audit is presented but minimized, and consequences of malpractices are not clear as well. So talking about things being enforceable. Typically, contract presumes one audit. I think that everyone should push for two, my personal opinion. I also think that this is a point associated with what if we will find that money has been spent in a very weird way for marketing, let's say. And that should be a very important question for you, because marketing commitments typically get recouped from the game sales before you start getting any revenue as well. So every marketing dollar is a dollar borrowed against the sales of your game in like all of the contracts. And this is something which a lot of people miss. So you need to be able to do an audit, and you need to understand how malpractices are identified and how they can be dealt with in one way or another. It's also the point where you get into the part of the goodwill in general, and I think that it makes sense to presume and contractually mark that in case that something bad happens or something unpredictable happens, and audit reflects this. For the first time, you will provide publisher with an opportunity to remedy this. But again, if you start to get into this situation, you need to think about a mirror mechanism for if you drop the ball on something drastically, you want to have an opportunity to have a chance to remedy this as well. Again, contractually. Jurisdictions, don't sign contracts where every legal issues would be solved in weird jurisdictions, or jurisdictions you cannot, or for some reason not able to get yourself a good lawyer or go to. I understand, and I signed many contracts where jurisdiction would be at the publisher's end, but if this is a normal first world democratic jurisdiction, whatever, and your lawyer and solicitors are located at the same location, or you can presume this scenario where you can hire someone in this jurisdiction, this is fine. Like, just go for it. But don't sign something weird in this sense. Like, it can get you to... I know a couple of people that have been put in a very weird position by a necessity to go and have a legal process somewhere at the Gibraltar. It just pay attention to it. Operational control is not specified, touches decision responsibilities, yet all missed deadlines are subject to staging and payment. So something I talked about, but every contract presumes that every non-delivery is an issue associated with the action of the developer, while, and we will talk about it very, very soon, supervision is done by the publisher of producer corps, a producer assigned by the publisher, and in a lot of circumstances, producer might be just not professional enough or being driven by factors that are not affiliated with an idea of benefit of your project. And you need to raise this question, and basically what you need to ask is, like, what happens if we're in between alpha and beta and producer just completely lost mind and just starts making completely unreasonable feedback that goes against our creative control, and we're not agreed to that, and we won't, and it looks like a potential case for determination which we want to avoid. The answer you most probably will get on that is that there will be a secured function for replacement of the producer with someone else. It means a couple of things at the same time. It means that you secure yourself a possibility of going up to the top to C-level executive or the founders of the publisher and have a conversation about someone who controls daily operation control. And you absolutely need to have that, because a lot of people, especially at the West, they would put a lot of effort to make sure that you do not talk with anyone who's above them on the hierarchy. And it's a very cultural, natural thing. Hierarchy is super sacred for the people from the Protestant environment history and this type of work ethics. But you need to have that, because you need to preserve level of relationships in between studio founders and the publisher founders, top executives, I would say, because otherwise you put yourself into a kind of a weird position for everyone who works at the publisher, where people would not consider you seriously, really. And this is bad. That will affect decisions in general. Plus, you need to have the functional mechanism for a replacement of someone who stopped providing services which are good for your project. You also want to use this opportunity to be a part of making this decision of, let's say, the producer gets replaced and someone new get hired, and you want to be a part of this hiring process as well. Because there's a lot of cases in the market at this point where people get hired because someone internally in a company just knows them. It's a lot of nepotism, just a lot of friends just bringing in friends without merit. There's a lot of cases where a person would be hired for a mythical 5 years in AAA, and let's say your project is AA and your project in a completely different genre, and let's say this guy or gal haven't been working for the last 3 years, and you want to be a part of the decision, you want to find a good match, like if that happens. But at the same time, I think it's a good practice to basically say that, yeah, obviously we'll start to work with the first producer if we agree the person has to have a chance and the person working in the company, and we presume knows how the job's done. But if that doesn't work, you need to have the mechanism of changing that. I know some of the situations where producer will be changed 2-3 times from the developer's end. I also know a bunch of the situations where producer have been changed 2 to 3 times from the publisher's end, and that was not very good for the developer as well, because new people would come in and would have different vision and ideas as well. So you also want to secure a change of the producer from the publisher side to be a mutual decision as well, and at least to be informed, and you need to understand the reason for it. So this is an important part. The person at the publisher's end who would be involved into the development of your game is someone who will daily affect the whole process of development and the future of your product. Like, think about it, and keep this in mind. Now, another thing about the operational control is you want to make sure that your processes are somewhat aligned with the processes of the publisher, and you spend some time at the initial stage and on the pre-production, which should be in any form. Whatever your game stage is, there should be a stage in a contract that basically would be spent on aligning the processes and procedures and deliveries and stuff and whatever. And everyone should be aware how things work. Everyone should be aware about internal protocols, the speed of the process, the SLAs. Like, I know a lot of people don't think it's a good idea. I think it is. Make sure that there are SLAs associated with all of the steps. Make sure that everyone knows that 24 hours is the time set for emails. A week is a term and the time that you use for the minor fixes in the build, and the 2 weeks for the larger fixes in the build. Go into details, set your expectations, put your expectations as yourself and set your expectations for your partner. It will really help you, like really help you, like 100% do that. And don't be afraid to be weird. Developers are often a bunch of weirdos. It's fine. We're nerds. Every company is set in a unique context and environment, and a lot of these companies, they have kind of a processes and legacies and the traditions that are very different from the market existing practices, and you would not be able to adapt all of them to existing standards. Trust me on that as well. So you want to inform people so that this is how you work, and this is how your plan looks, and it would not compromise the expectations from the stages of the delivery, but they need to know about that and they need to keep it in mind, and you're definitely not changing that, because you won't. Non-disclosure can be way too intimidating for all relevant and possible information related to all product-related activities in the subject. Just contract-wise, there is a general observation made by a lot of people in the legal practices and into the game development in general. And it goes for everyone spends a lot of time looking at the provisions at the first 2 pages, where you see just the numbers and your credentials and the general description of what the deal is. People somewhat pay attention to responsibilities of the both parties. People typically spend some attention looking at the termination and the survivability. Everything else is for 99% people is the secondary priority information, and it shouldn't be for you. You need to go into everything related to behavior related expectations and practices. You need to look into information management related stuff. You need to look at the security obligations as well. You need to look at everything which is marked with the asterisk or done small font with a maximized attention in general. You will find a lot of things which would be fine for the companies which are set in a different context, but that wouldn't suit you. And you need to ask these questions, and I'll give you a couple of examples on that. So a lot of publishers will build their marketing effort in a way where they effectively would want you to not to talk with anyone about anything until the specific date, and they will have it in a contract for everyone. Let's say you already went ahead and you have a website that announced a lot of those things, and your question would be, should we take down the site? And they would say yes, but maybe you don't want to do that. And maybe it's a situation where you got your website up for a week and it's something that you can do, and you agree with the decision, and it's kind of mutual. And maybe your website's been shed, and now you have much more ambition and money and ability to produce these things, and you want to build another site. So that would be something that you would want to go to. Let's say your website and Discord and materials, a bunch of other things exist for a half a year now, and you're running a community of 10,000 people interested in your game. You just cannot do that. You would be foolish to go and listen to marketing people who often just don't care. Because they deal with a lot of projects, they want to do stuff systemically in many instances. So you need to make it a part of the conversation and discuss it and say that, look, this is a situation, we need to talk about it. And that's one example. Or let's say your plan is to build the studio very independently, and you have a relationship with, you have, let's say, 2 or 3 projects for different platforms, and you have a relationship with the variety of the publishers, and you want to make sure that everything marked as something related to exclusiveness and stuff would be discussed as well. Because standard forms and standard definitions would not work for you. So keep this in mind. But the general rule of the Somerville is that every typical contract that being given to you as a standard one is something which is not put to your leverage. It's not something that considers all of your interests. So it's your job to go to that through that very attentively and align it with your future strategy, and be very honest with the partner, and sometimes a little bit brutally honest, basically saying that, look, this is not what we're looking here, we're not gonna do that, not gonna give you this, we're looking at this as a one-time deal, we like your audience, we like what you currently do in the market, from your 10 games lineup, 4 are really looking at us, and we think, and the game is reaching better, and we have our own funding, and we think that this is a good potential launch. If it will work for both of us, we will consider a possibility of working with you together. But we are an independent company. We want to hold all of the communication with community in our own hands. We consider your marketing outside of access to your audience and auxiliary effort. So let's just keep it this way. Let's do that. And if they're fine with that, then fine. Or in other circumstances, it would be, all right, we are a new, fresh studio. We don't really have money. We were very close to our runway, and we have this game, and our plan is to make 3 parts of that with a bunch of DLCs for a bunch of consoles. And this publisher is known for doing specifically that. So we're kind of looking into agreeing into a lot of things, but we still would want to preserve the ownership of the IP, but we will give 100% of the marketing side to what they do, with the exception of being able to hold a community relationship through the developer side, not for the marketing side, because we don't believe that a company with the 15 projects in a portfolio would be able to do that with the same attention as we do. We understand how much community is an important and complex factor. So, and those scenarios are super various, and you need to pick yours.